Hello students. So today we'll be going to the first topic in our unit 1, that is the types of statements. First will be the first grammar topic that we have in this is how to use is, am, are, or it's also called statements with be. Okay, now before we go to statements with be, we'll be looking at what are statements when we say that. So when we say statements, it's a sentence basically. Okay, so we'll be looking at types of statements that we have, which we'll be looking at this book again and looking at in this book again and again. Okay, so the first statement that we have is the positive statement. That is the normal sentence that we make. Okay, example, when we say subject, verb, and object. So whenever we make a sentence in English, remember that we start our sentence with a subject, then we have a verb, and then we have an object. What is a subject? Subject is the main thing that we are talking about. For example, if I say, I am Susmita. So I, that is the subject. Then we have verb, that is am, and then we have the object. So why do we have an object in a sentence? We can also say I am, right? But why do we have an object? Object gives us more information. For example, if I say she is sleeping gives me enough information, does it? No, it does not. So that's the reason we have object. She is sleeping on the bed. That is something that I can say. So here on the bed becomes our object part. Okay. Next, we have negative statements. Negative statements are whenever we use the word not in a sentence. Okay, not, never, that makes the sentence or your statements negative. So how do we have the sentence structure for this? We have subject, helping verb, not, and verb if needed, and then the object part. Then we have questions. Okay. We have interrogative statements. We have two types of questions in this or statements in this, that is WH questions. We also call it open-ended, and then we have yes and no questions, which are also called close-ended. So what are WH questions? If I ask you, what is your name? You'll be giving me an explanatory answer, right? For example, another example we can take is, where do you live? You'll be giving me an explanatory answer, right? I live in Pune. So that's how our WH questions are. And that's why they are called open-ended questions. For example, you can talk on this topic, where do you live, in like 5 minutes as well, right? So that is the reason they are called open-ended questions. Then what are closed-ended questions? Closed-ended questions are we give answers as yes or no. Example, if I ask you, do you have a laptop? You'll either say yes or you will say no, right? So that is called yes and no questions. They are also called closed-ended because the answer expected are either yes or no. Okay. Then the second topic that we have in over here is first person, second person, and third person. Now, this is very important. Okay, we need to understand whom we are talking about. Now, when we say first person, what do we mean by that? We mean that the speaker, we are talking about ourselves when we are speaking. So that's when we use first person. Okay. So in singular, I will use I, and in plural, I will use we. Okay. I am talking, we are listening. Second person is the listener. So as you have a conversation, this role keeps changing. Okay, the speaker and the listener. So when I'm talking to you, I will say you, right? So that is the second person. And then we have the third person. Third person is the person that we are talking about. For example, I am talking about my cat. So he or she or it, those are the words that I can use in singular. And it could also be the name of the person that we're talking about. And in plural, that is many people we'll be talking about, we'll be using they. Okay. That's how we use first person, second person, and third person. Next, we have something called, just a minute. Yes, so this is the table that you should remember, how the helping verbs change with our subject pronouns. These are called subject pronouns. Now, ahead in our book, we'll be looking at something as well that is called object pronouns. Okay, so with I, we will use am. These are the verbs that we use for be. Okay, so be is the main verb, and then we change it to is, am, are. And according to the subject, we change them. So with I, we will use am. With you, we will use are. He, she, it, we will use is always. With we, we'll use are. With again, they are. And if we are taking the third person singular's name, for example, say Rita, then I will use is. But if I'm talking about third person in plural, then I will say Rita and Mohan are eating. Okay, that's how we use them. Next topic that we have, this is an example that you can remember. You can write it down for yourself. And next thing that we have is possessive adjectives. Now, you might remember we must have gone through in the first class something called adjectives. Adjectives are the words that give us more information about nouns and pronouns, our subject basically, right? So we have something called possessive adjectives. It's a type of adjectives. So possessive adjectives are the words which are used to talk about possession or ownership. Who owns this thing? Okay. So I will say my, your, his, her, it's, our, and their. It's there. Okay. So I can use this word to talk about possession. For example, this is my book. That is your book. So that is how I will say it. Okay. Now, something that you need to remember over here is they always come before the noun and after the helping verbs that we use. Okay. So I will always say this is my book, but I cannot say this book is mine. That's incorrect. Okay. There are other words which we can use instead. This book is mine. So that becomes your possessive pronoun. Okay. Then these possessive adjectives are used to replace the nouns. So possessive nouns, if you remember, apostrophe S, whenever you use apostrophe S, that's your possessive nouns. So they are basically used to replace them. Okay. So I can also say Tom is Amy's friend, but the better way would be to say Tom is her friend. Okay. So this is the topic for today. We'll be meeting in the next unit. Thank you.